Nightztalker, the dating game part 3. When it comes to the subject of dating, we talked earlier in part 2 about having a misunderstanding about what it is that we're looking for and the fact of, do we just want to date around? Do we just want to meet a lot of people? Do we just want to have fun? That is a disastrous routine, whether it's the male or the female. We tend to create the idea in our head that we can handle it. We can handle what may come our way. And especially with us men, we tend to pretend as if we are not affected by the things that may occur in a relationship and particular turnoffs that take place with the lady as a result of having intercourse too soon, or spending the night, or allowing someone to spend the night. We tend to say that we're okay or we're not okay with certain things. We tend to be dishonest about our level of comfort and our level of commitment. We tend to bend and break the rules as it relates to dating other people or having a relationship that we want to stay in the friend zone too long, or the friend with benefits zone. This is disastrous for both male and females. I find it very interesting that today's ladies have a tendency to participate in acts of sexual intercourse or sexual related activity soon. First dates even. Second dates even. And then you find those ladies that have the 30-day rule, the 3-date rule, the 6-date rule. Guys, for the most part, I'm not exposing us when I say that the average guy would want to have and participate in a sexual activity early on, or sexual related activity early on, because the idea is that guys just want to hit and run. There are gentlemen, however, that are interested in more long-term relationships, or a second time, a second term, a second chance, a second opportunity. This is very difficult, and this can also be tough for a lot of ladies to understand or even gather. But sometimes a guy may not feel that he put on his best performance. If it occurs that you have a relationship with a guy, ladies, I would encourage you, if you are given in or surrender to the idea of participating in sexual activity too early, on that second date, why don't you put the idea of having sexual intercourse or any interrelated sexual activity, sexual-based activity, put it off the second, or maybe the third, or the second and the third, in order to understand where the mindset is. Because we are very physical creatures, and we have a tendency to like what we like and want what we want. And even if you are tempted, and of course you desire the activity, the connective tissue that is related to the idea of exploring and participating in this act tends to weigh on the female more so than the male. And it also adds to the idea of reputation. And we talked about earlier in chapter 2, when we talked about how we meet the people that we meet, and we talked about blind dates and the fact of this person introducing us in the circles in which we deal with. And we talked about how information is shared and how oversharing could give you a bad name or leave a bad taste in your mouth about a relationship issue that someone shares with someone else. These are the things that we have to consider. But back to the subject of men. Men say that they don't feel, say that they don't care. And a lot of it is related to the way that they were raised and the way that they understood or come to understand the idea of dating and baiting women and pulling women into their circle. we have a tendency to say that we don't care and I'm so over it. But when there is a clear idea of a relationship, or that there may be a relationship between the male and the female, many times males more than females tend to get a little bit more, as they refer to, in their feelings about the idea, or the suggestive idea, or the imagined idea that there may be someone else in your circle. Even though they may be guilty of the very same thing, men have a tendency to be hypersensitive when it comes to the idea that they are not number one. And though we observe a lot more ladies being the ones to lash out and to react, and he's cheating on me and he's out here carrying on, the men are not being honest, and their feelings and their reactions are less available to us in social media and even in our day-to-day communications. But we are equally, and in many cases, more affected and more involved in the idea of feelings, or catching feelings, as they refer to it. This is something that I wanted to add, because in chapter 3, because this will be our closing chapter, I wanted to add this one little tidbit. Alone time is important. Being by yourself is important in relation to the idea of, if you had a former relationship and you watched how it went, you are only evaluating and determining that relationship based on how you felt, what you thought, what you felt they did that affected it, or what they felt they did and regarded, determining who was the reason why we're out of this relationship. And the amount of appendages and people that we allow in and out of our relationship, and in and out of our relationship scene. We have this evaluation, and in most cases, not all cases, is skewed by what I think, what I felt, how I thought you treated, what I thought you said, how honest you were, how dishonest you were, how honest or dishonest I was. The important thing is to have that alone time. And why do you need alone time? Because you need to evaluate. You may need to go back 1-2 relationships. You may not only have to look at this relationship, this marriage, this communication, this particular situation, but you may need to look at all of them. And you need to find that common denominator. There were some questions of being honest. There were some questions of how many children. There were some questions of how to use the money. There were some questions of how often you wanted to participate in sexual activity. There was some concerns about being less intimate or less romantic. There were some concerns about household chores, living together, not living together, living with your mama, not living with your mama. There could be any number of things. And when you take the time to consider all these moving parts and all these considerations, it will give you everything that you're going to need to enter into a new relationship. You sort of have a clean slate. And at the same time, you have a cheat sheet so that you can look and say, oh, maybe I need to ask these questions earlier, or maybe I need to understand and consider these things at the outstart. Because when you do that, and when you take these moments of evaluation in a long time, it gives you an opportunity to understand something about you as it relates to relationships, and relationships as they relate to you. My final thought, and this is very important. When you're sitting around trying to determine if you want to be with someone, do you want to be with someone, you need to be with someone, the important idea is to not rely on social media, family, and the amount of birthdays you have to determine whether or not you should be or could be in a relationship. There is never a necessity to have a man or a necessity to have a woman. What is necessary is that you find peace, and if you can find it with a woman or without a woman, or with a man or without a man, that's fine, but you could do bad all by yourself. Don't allow yourself to get caught into this idea of the friends and the groupings that you find yourself in, as well as social media and television, and how it dictates the idea of you being in a relationship, because that is going to cause you a whole lot of problems in the long run, because you don't have an hour relationship, you have a lifetime, or making a lifetime decision. And that 1 hour program and that half hour or that 2 minutes that it takes you to read a meme is not real life in many cases. So make sure you stay focused on the reason as to why you need to do it, and focus, like I said, focus on that downtime. This final piece that I want to talk about, that I've been trying to get to, there's so many things that I want to mention, is get you a hobby. Get busy doing something. Get in school. Get in a training program. Get into a volunteerism program, not necessarily church, because there is a community within the church that creates these subcultures and these sub-communities that we find ourselves in these close proximities with the people that we see in the church. And we, of course, we understand that they have the beliefs, and they at least understand where we are as far as religion is concerned. And excuse me. And there tends to be a commonality with them. I don't discourage it altogether, but I'm saying when it comes to the subject of volunteerism and commitment and getting involved in things, try to work outside of the circle and the ideas and the situations that you have found yourself involved in and have committed to in other relationships. Find you something new. Start writing poetry. Start writing your songs. Buy you a coloring book. Read a little more. Get into a training program. Get involved. Get connected. And be busy about life, change, shift, newness. That, every time, 100% of the time, will draw you and bring you into that connection that you need. Not because it will directly do it, but something happens with your mind. And when you're involved in different things, it changes the way that you think. It changes the way that you believe. And it changes the way that you understand the way people work. One more little tidbit. Get yourself a journal. Take a moment and sit down and write some things. Write your mindset. Write your turnoffs. Yeah, he wears too much cologne. Well, he doesn't wear any cologne. Man, he wears those slacks every day. Man, she wears too much weave. Man, she needs to comb her hair. Boy, she needs to work out. He needs to work out. Any number of these things that you're writing down in your journal, you're writing expectations, you're writing desires, you're writing things that you experience, you write things that you like and dislike about yourself as well as those around you. And you know what? As you begin to move along in life, take a little time and go backwards and look over that. You find out how far you've come from where you were. These are important tools. And these will make you dateable. These will make you find out. You know, people talk about dating themselves. I don't know what that's all about. This will make you a top-notch suitor. And even if it doesn't do it in the time that you think that it should, it's going to change you. This is Arnold Tate, Arnold Mr. Dad Tate, as part of the